Very good afternoon to all of you, dear students. Today I will be revising some of the important points related with the poem Childhood written by Marcus Natten. So hereby I am sharing the screen with all of you. Kindly let me know whether the screen is visible to you all or not. Okay, so I am just sharing it right now. It will be presentable to you shortly, and I do hope you all will be able to see it. Okay, now I am moving on to the content that I will be showing to you all. So the content is related with the poem Childhood. So I guess the content is visible to all of you. Is the content visible to all of you? Please let me know. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for the feedback. So we will be discussing about the poem Childhood in this particular class. First of all, information about the poet, what we get to know about him. Let me just maximize it a bit, zoom in a bit. Yes, now Marcus Natten, actually he was a Norwegian poet, and this poem was originally written in Norwegian language. Later it was translated into English. Okay, later this poem was actually translated into English. Now let us come to an overview of this poem. I hope the next slide is also visible to all of you. Now in this poem, what does the poet talks about? The poet talks about the loss of innocence. The name of the poem is Childhood. Loss of childhood. Actually, what does it suggest? Loss of childhood suggests loss of innocence. Okay. The poet wonders when and where he lost his childhood, and there are many assumptions been made by the poet because it was not possible for him to come to a fixed assumption. So in the first stanza you will find two assumptions being done. Okay, first assumption was when he ceased to be 11, he thought that maybe at that point of time he had lost his childhood. Another assumption being made by him was that when he realized that hell and heaven do not exist in reality, neither they can be found in geography books nor in the atlas or world maps. Okay, so all these are the figments of human imagination. Now when he realized it, then only he realized that maybe at that point of time only he lost his childhood. Now in the second stanza, another assumption been made, okay, that the true nature of the adults, okay, that they are mean-minded, they are hypocrites. This true nature of the adults, when it got reflected, or rather to say when he got to know about it, maybe at that point of time or maybe at that juncture he had lost his childhood. Or there is one more assumption that is related with the power of independent thinking and decision making abilities. Now when he gained that power of individual thinking, when he reclaimed his own personality, okay, and when he realized that he can use his mind in whichever way he can. Okay, so when that power of independent thinking and that decision making ability came to his realization, at that point of time only he realized that he was no longer a child. He had already stepped into the world of the adult. And obviously from this, when we come to the last stanza of the poem, as you know, he was very much eager to know which location his childhood went by, because childhood once went by, it went by forever, it won't return back again. But there is a note of optimism that we can say in this regard, that we can actually get our long lost childhood, or we can feel a glimpse of our long lost childhood whenever we see the face of an innocent child. Whenever we see the face of an innocent child, at that moment only we can feel our own childhood. Okay, now that is like a momentary or temporary glimpse of our own childhood. So this is in a nutshell what the poem is all about. As I will move along, it will be much more clear to you all. See, he thinks his childhood innocence and faith gradually faded away as he gained in rationality and understood the functioning of the adult world. Previously, he thought that the adults were generous and kind hearted, but later, with gaining experience, he realized that the adults they were actually crook minded, they are shrewd, and most importantly, they are hypocrites, they are mean minded people. Now previously he had a conception, later his conception changed regarding the adults. So maybe at that point of time he thought at the back of his mind that he had lost his childhood. Now see, there is another important point, very important point. See, perhaps he lost his childhood when he learned to assert his own individuality. That means, as I told you, the power of independent thinking. Now when that got successfully evolved, okay, or when he realized that now he has the power within himself to think independently, not only that, when he realized that now he can utilize his own decisions, he has decision making abilities on his own. When he realized that one, at that point of time, or rather to say at that stage, he realized that already he stepped into the world of experience, leaving behind the world of innocence. The world of innocence is represented by his phase of childhood. The world of experience is represented by his stage or phase related with adulthood. And in this poem there is a contrast, okay, that also you should know, everyone, that there is a contrast between childhood as well as adulthood. Okay, see, the poet feels that his childhood went with the passing of infancy. Perhaps it can be found again hidden in the face of another infant. Now this is something very important. Notably, we must actually know this fact that childhood once went by, it went by forever, it won't return back. Okay, our childhood has already passed by. I am an adult now. Now can I relive my childhood? Definitely not. You are all young adults. Okay, now you are also no longer child. So how can we revive and relive our childhood phase? Whenever we see the face of an infant child, okay, at that time we relive our own childhood. That is the reason whenever we hold a child, an innocent young child, we are very happy. Why? We become very happy after holding a child. Okay, now the reason behind is that we can relate to our own child by looking at the face of an infant child, or by there might be some technical error. So can you all listen to me right now? Hello?
Sure.
Okay, just a minute, the screen went blank right now, so please hold on, everyone. I'm just trying to reconnect once again. All of a sudden it happened. Okay, just a minute, everyone. Okay, let it restart once again, just give me some time. Okay, I guess the screen is still totally blank. Yeah, now it came back once again, and I hope you all can see it, right? So
No, sir.
yes,
No, sir.
it is not visible right now. Okay, just a minute, maybe
Sir, it came
there,
back.
it came back right now. Can you
Yes.
all see it?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Is the screen visible to all of you right now? Can you all see it? Okay, so let me continue then. Yes, all of you now can see the screen. Actually, there was a bit of a technical fault, but now I hope it returned back once again. Now I hope you all can see the screen. Is the screen visible to all of you right now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you see, as I was talking about, that we can relive our innocent phase of our life if we see the face of an infant. Okay, whenever we see the face of an infant, we can reclaim our childhood phase. Okay, now see, as I was talking about the poet, in this poem there is a contrast between two things, childhood and adulthood. Okay, there is a contrast in this poem. See, the poet outlines the contrast between childhood and adulthood. Now, obviously, whenever we are stepping into the world of adulthood, what does it suggest, or rather to say, what does it means? It means that we are stepping from the world of innocence, okay, to the world of experience. I repeat one more time, we are stepping from the world of innocence to the world of experience. See, the transition is perhaps hard to understand or come to terms with, but it is a harsh reality that one grows up to someday. See, it is a harsh reality, it is a transition, but ultimately it's a harsh reality, and with the passage of time we get used to it. Clear? Okay, now let me move on to the next important phase of this particular PPT material. I hope you all can see the introduction. I guess the introduction is visible. So let me introduce you the poem, though you know about it. Now see, in this poem, the poet actually ponders. Okay, what is the meaning of ponder? Can any one of you know what exactly is the meaning of the term ponder is? We say no, pondering. Now what exactly does it mean? Can any one of you suggest what exactly the term ponder means? Ponder means to brood, B-R-O-O-D, ruminate or brood. That is the meaning of the term ponder. Now what the poet is pondering? The poet ponders deeply over the question of his lost childhood. He recalls a number of stages when his thoughts and perceptions about the world and people changed. He tries to identify that one particular stage or time when he lost his childhood and stepped into adulthood. But see, he went on giving different assumptions because it is not possible for him to mark one singular event in his life that is related with the loss of his childhood. It was not possible for him to mark a singular event in his life because there are multiple assumptions being made by him. As we go through this 4-stanza poem, there are 4 assumptions we find in this poem that the poet was actually talking about related with his childhood, how he lost his childhood and how he stepped into the world of adulthood. See, he feels a sense of nostalgia. What is the meaning of nostalgia? Anyone, any idea what exactly does it means? Longing for the past. Okay, now see, he feels a sense of nostalgia for the lost childhood and finally settles down with an idea that his childhood has gone to some forgotten place, and that is the reason, dear students, it has been written oblivion, because it went to some forgotten place, and that place could only be found in an infant's innocent face. As I told you, whenever you see the face of an infant, okay, you can feel like there lies your childhood. That is the reason when we hold a child in our arms or when we hug a child, we feel very much close to God because we can feel our childhood in the face of that infant, and this is like a temporary repose for us. It is not a permanent solution because it's not something that will be permanent, but it gives us a glimpse of a temporary glimpse of our forgotten childhood, or rather to say, it gives us a temporary glimpse of our long lost childhood. Okay, so hereby I am moving on to the next important slide, summary. Let me deal now with the summary related with this poem. Now, as I told you that the speaker was pondering about the childhood that he had lost, as you know. So see, the speaker pondered deeply upon the spiritual questions of life and ultimately realized the fact that his childhood days were finally gone down into the past of eternity for good and would never return. So finally, philosophically, he do realize that his childhood phase, his own childhood phase, will never return again. But whenever he will see the face of a child, he can get a glimpse of his long lost childhood. But in reality or in real circumstances, it won't be possible for him to reclaim or to get back his childhood. It is not possible at all. He can, that will be staying in his mind as a distant memory. Okay, see, childhood would now only remain in his memories. He wondered if the end of childhood was the day he ceased to be 11 years old, the time when he realized that heaven and hell are not real places because they could not be located in geography and never could be. See, actually, in the very first answer, we get to see these two assumptions. The poet, he was thinking that perhaps when he was no longer 11 years old, maybe at that point of time he lost his childhood, or else when he realized that hell and heaven are contrasting images and are not real places. They are all like fairy tale stories, because when he gained his wisdom, when he became learned, he haven't found the places like hell and heaven in geography books, neither in the world maps. Okay, so maybe he thought that maybe at that juncture or maybe at that point only he had lost his childhood. Now I am moving on to the next one. See, where did his childhood go? Okay, was it the time he realized that adults were not all they seemed to be? That this is another assumption being made by the poet, when he realized that the adults were actually mean-minded, they are hypocrites. Okay, because they talk about love, they give lot of suggestions how to preach love, but in reality they don't act so lovingly. Or maybe when he realized that he had full control over his mind, he can take decisions on his own, independent thinking, and obviously not only independent thinking but also decision making abilities, when he gathered inside his own mind, when he discovered his own self personality. At that stage of his life, probably he lost his childhood. Now the question is that where did his childhood go? Which place? Okay, he doesn't know the location. Dear students, I hope you can understand by now. He doesn't know the location where his childhood went by. See, it went to some forgotten place that is hidden in a baby's face. That was all that he knew, and that was all that he remembered. See, now obviously childhood went to some forbidden, forgotten place. It went to oblivion, and it is whenever you see the face of a baby, or whenever you see the face of an infant child or an infant baby, obviously you can feel or you can find your long lost childhood, or rather to say your own childhood you can remember whenever you see the face of a newborn child. Okay, so I am moving on now to the next one. See, basically in this poem the poet is trying to realize the age when he lost his childhood, when he became mature enough to understand the worldly things. And what are the worldly things? That hell and heaven, they do not exist. And obviously when the actual nature of the adults, okay, got exposed to him, he realized that after that he was no longer a child. So in the first three paragraphs, okay, he was asking the similar question, when did my childhood go? Finally he realizes, dear students, this is very important. See, finally he realizes that his childhood is gone to some unknown place, okay, some forgotten place. That it means that it went to some unknown place, and that is hidden in an infant's face. Okay, now that is concealed, or rather to say that is hidden. So that is the reason whenever you see the face of a child, okay, you can realize, or you can actually come to terms with your own lost childhood. Okay, so I am now shifting on to the next important slide, that is the poem. Now just let me zoom in a bit so that you all can see the poem, and I will be just explaining it a bit, because I know in my offline classes I did explain to you the poem. But before that,
Yes, sir.
dear students, is the screen visible to you all? And can you all see it properly with Ijo and others? Can you see it properly? Okay, fine. Okay, so let us move on then. When did my childhood go and was that the day? These two lines are pretty common in the second stanza as also in the third stanza, but the pattern of the question changes in the fourth stanza. What is written? Where did my childhood go? Okay, so let us move on. Look at the very first line. When did my childhood go? Was it the day I ceased to be 11? Was it the time I realized that hell and heaven could not be found in geography and therefore could not be? Was that the day? Now, obviously, as I told you, the two assumptions that he talked about is mentioned in the very first stanza. Number one, he realized that when he was no longer 11 years old, probably and possibly he lost his childhood at that time, or when he realized that hell and heaven are not found in the books of geography, neither it is found in the world maps or atlas. Maybe at that juncture he had lost his childhood. Now I am moving on to the second stanza. Here also one more assumption you will find. See, when did my childhood go? Was it the time I realized that adults were not all they seemed to be? They talked of love and preached of love, but did not act so lovingly. Was that the day? Now see, that means when he realized the actual nature of the adults, that they are actually mean-minded, they are hypocrites. So when the true nature of the adults got exposed to him, maybe at that time only he realized that he was no longer a child, and he realized that maybe at that time I stepped into the world of experience, living beside the world of innocence. Okay, moving on to the second last stanza. When did my childhood go? Was it when I found my mind was really mine, to use whichever way I choose, producing thoughts that were not those of other people, but my own and mine alone? Was that the day? That means when I developed the power of independent thinking, when I developed my own rationality, when I developed my own decision making abilities, maybe at that stage or maybe at that juncture, I had lost my childhood and I had stepped into the world of the adulthood. Now, last stanza, as I told you, now previously he was obsessed with the fact, so he went on doing a self inquiry and giving a self assertion he was making, that when did my childhood go. He made a lot of assumptions regarding that. Okay, self assumption, self inquiry, and self assumption being done by him. Now again a self inquiry being done by the poet, but here the question pattern changes. In the previous three stanzas, what was written? When did my childhood go? Isn't it, dear boys? Now see what is written. Where did my childhood go? See, it went to some forgotten or forbidden place that is hidden in an infant's face. That's all I know. That means it went to some forgotten place and that is hidden in the face of an infant, or it is hidden in the face of a newborn child. That means that is the reason we feel so ecstatic, we feel so happy whenever we hold a child in our arms, isn't it? Because we feel our childhood gets back to us. But remember, this feeling, this is a temporary sort of happiness, a glimpse of temporary happiness related with our long lost childhood that comes back whenever we come in close contact with an infant child. I hope up to this it is very much clear to all of you. Now, one important thing I like to discuss in this particular class at the closing moments, that is the paraphrase, stanza wise paraphrase. As I told you in the first stanza, the poet was talking about the the loss of childhood, and he made two important assumptions. Okay, now remember one thing: the process of growing up from a child to an adolescent and from an adolescent to an adult is a process. Okay, it's a biological process. Now there is no line of demarcation between the various stages of life. The poet begins the poem by putting forth this question to himself, that he is wondering after passing through many years, after moving through his life and after becoming a bit aged. He was actually questioning in his own mind that when exactly have I lost my childhood, because he can't came out with the fact that what is the exact reason related with the loss of my childhood. So he made a lot of assumptions. See, he wonders if it was the day he ceased to be 11, or was it the time he realized that heaven or and hell could not be located on the maps he was familiar with. Okay, just a minute, I hope there is someone on the line. Is there someone on the line? No. Let us move on. So see, as he matures, he realizes that they do not exist in this world. They are only imaginary places. See, initially he believed in all this, but later he realized that these places are actually imaginary places. They don't have any real significance as such. Then in the second stanza, he realized the hypocrisy of the adults. So when the actual face of the adults got exposed to him, okay, their double standard mentality, okay, the double standard mentality of the adults got exposed to him. Maybe at that stage he realized that he was no longer a child. Okay, then in the third stanza, obviously acquiring that power of individuality, self-personality, one's own rediscovery, or discovering one's own individuality, or discovering one's own personality. See, the poet, pondering over the same questions, wonders if it was the day when his personality acquired certain individuality, when he realized that his mind was his own and he was capable of producing thoughts that were his own, devoid of any form of bias or influence. Now devoid means totally absence of everything. Now he is conscious of his own separate identity and feels himself different from others. Now the important thing is that previously he was not conscious or concerned about his individual identity or his own separate identity, but now he became conscious of his own separate identity and he feels that he is different from the others. So when this realization came to him, perhaps at that stage of his life, he lost his childhood and had entered into the world of adulthood. But he was not so sure, because all these are at the end of the day assumptions being made by him. I'm moving on now to the remaining part, or rather to say the fourth stanza. As you know, in the fourth stanza the pattern of question changes. Now he is very much eager to know the place of the location where his childhood went by. See, the poet concludes the poem by expressing his regret at the loss of his childhood, which was a beautiful period of his life. Actually, childhood, not only in his life, in everyone's life, okay, in all our lives, childhood is one of the most blessed and one of the most blissful phase of our life, isn't it, dear students? We do agree with this. The recollection of it has faded away with the passage of time, but see, childhood memories we don't remember every time. Whenever we pass through harsh life experience, we tend to remember as a form of nostalgia our own childhood. But with the passage of time, as we all know, with the growing of age, okay, the childhood, this phase passes away. Perhaps it has gone to the innocent phase of a child. Here the poet creates a lovely image of an infant's face. He conveys the idea that innocence of the child remains only as long as one is infant. See, innocence remains as long as one is a child, or rather to say, as long as one is an infant. Now there is a tinge of optimism in this thought, At least innocence and purity of mind prevails in some form or the other on this earth. So how it prevails? That see, childhood once gone, as I told you earlier in my class for today, that it won't come back. But obviously, whenever you see the face of an innocent child, you can, for a temporary moment also, you can get back your long lost childhood. Okay, so that is it. This is all related
Thank you,
with the
sir.
poem. So you will